Anthony Grasso here, bringing you financial news you can use. In this video, we're going to go over the current status of whether or not student loan forgiveness is actually going to happen. 100% of it, $10,000 of it, $50,000 of it. We'll basically go into the current proposals right now, and I'll give you my 2 cents on what I think is going to happen and predict with my crystal ball the next 6 months of this crazy times we're in. So, these videos are all about stock market investing, real estate investing, and market news that you can use. So if you like this video, hit that like button, and please consider subscribing if you're interested in market news that will benefit you. So let's get right into it. So the current status of student loan debt right now is $1.7 trillion. That's a lot of moolah. So what does this mean right now for what's going on? There's proposals to wipe out $10,000 of debt, $50,000 of debt, all the debt. So currently, President-elect Biden has proposed $10,000 of forgiveness of student loan debt as soon as he takes office in his first 100 days. He's stated that. Elizabeth Warren and Schumer are all about $50,000 of wiping out debt, and the progressive wing of their party wants all of the debt wiped out. So let's briefly go over, and I'll show you Biden's current proposal. So here we go. So you can go here on Biden, JoeBiden.com's website, and actually check out his current proposal for higher education beyond high school. We're not really going to get into all of this, but just know that you can go to JoeBiden.com and read his current proposal. And also, Schumer Warren actually wants canceling up to $50,000 a debt right here. You can go to warren.senate.gov. There's a link to it above, and they outline their general plan for actions in 2021. But I'm just gonna really sum it up for you guys. We're not really gonna read too much into this specifically, but it's there for you to read. Okay, so most student loan borrowers, the current state of payments. So we'll go briefly go over that. So currently, if you're a student loan borrower, you don't have to make any payments on your student loans till January 2021. There's been proposals through the HEROES Act to extend that all the way out to the end of 2021, September, or beyond. I'm guessing that with the current COVID crisis, that you're going to see most likely student loan payments being forgiven. Not forgiven. You don't really going to have to make any payments on your student loans until probably towards the end of the COVID crisis. So we're going to be looking at going on. But one of the things I want to bring up to you is, can Biden, through executive action, wipe out the debt that he's proposing? And he's actually proposed wiping out $10,000 with executive action if Congress is not willing to work with him. But he didn't say that specifically, because he said he wants to work with Congress first. So before he uses executive action on wiping out with a stroke of a pen, and there's some arguments that can he actually do that. So I'm going to briefly go over what the current state of that is. So right now, the U.S. Secretary of Education, that's part of the executive branch, for you guys who don't know. They have the power to forgive student loans, whether it be due to fraud, disability, or school closures. For instance, if school closes and you're taking out student debt, well, the federal government can say, hey, well, that school closed, we just wipe out that debt completely. In some situations, I'm not talking about a lot. So Congress gave the U.S. Secretary of Education that authority. And the current status of student loan repayment, for instance, let's say you're in a income-based repayment plan that was passed back in 2007, 2008, way back then. All the debt's going to be forgiven in 20 to 25 years of what's left on the books. Now, with that currently income-based repayment plan, it's a possibility that students might have a huge tax bill. Let's say at the end of 25 years, you still owe $100,000. We're talking years, 13 years down the road, or 7 to 13 years, depending on when you took your loans. You could be left with a huge tax burden. So who knows what they're going to do to that when that day comes. But now let's talk about Congress giving the authority to the U.S. Secretary of Education on wiping out the debt. Is that even possible? Some argue no, some argue yes. it's more reasonable for me to think that Congress granted the education secretary power to cancel student loans only in certain circumstances, and is less likely that Congress intended to grant that education secretary unlimited power to forgive student loans by a stroke of the pen with executive order. So most likely, we're going to go see we're going to see Biden work with Congress. Now, this highly dependent upon this Georgia runoff elections, as you know, that's going on right now. I mean, if the Democrats take over both the Senate and the House, they'll be able to pass whatever they want. So if that does happen, Biden will most likely be able to work with Congress, because it passes the Congress, it has to go past the Senate as well. So this is something to look for going into 2021, whether that's actually going to happen or not. My opinion is he's first going to try to push Congress, even if a Republican Senate takes over and keeps power. I'm pretty sure Biden, and don't hold me to it, will try to work with Congress to pass a bill, and then try to get a couple Republican congressmen to jump on board with him on a student loan repayment plan. But let's look at this out in a macro sense. So, forgiving all student loan debt. Is it likely that all student loan debt is going to be wiped out? As it stands right now, the chances are a little slim to none that all student loan debt, I mean, $1.7 trillion is a huge amount. This video isn't going over the pros and cons of whether you agree or disagree. I'll do another video just on the pros and just on the cons of what will happen in the economy if that does happen and we wipe out $1.7 trillion of debt. So that's not the point of this video. So what we have here right now is a good possibility of some debt being wiped out. Now let's go back to Warren real quick on hers. So she had a couple of attorneys look at whether it's possible for the Secretary of Education here has the broad authority to cancel student loan debt. Now, that does remain to be seen. So we'll see exactly what happens with this. But before we get into in detail on too much, because this isn't really a big topic right now until going into 2021. Now, my suggestion is there's probably going to be a broader bill, is you have to really restructure secondary education. And Joe Biden does have a plan that he's posted on his website of what his plan for secondary education looks like. Because you can't just say, I'm going to forgive $1.7 trillion and not restructure our current higher education on students just taking out more debt and more debt and more debt. So you can wipe out $1.7 trillion, but if you don't fix the higher education aspect of it, in 10 years, we're going to be back at square one with $1.7 trillion again. So please leave a comment down below on what do you think is going to happen in January. Let's take out our crystal balls here, okay, guys? So do you think it's going to be $10,000? Do you think it's going to be 50? Do you think it's going to be the whole amount of student loan debt being forgiven? I definitely want to hear your opinion on this, and then we'll do another video on the pros and cons of what's going to happen if all the debt's wiped out at all. So if you like this video, hit that like button. If you're thinking about subscribing, please hit that subscribe button. If you're interested in financial news, why don't just go over student loan debt? We go over all market news, stock market investing, real estate investing, everything you can think of under the sun for financial news that you can use. So stay tuned to the next video, and we'll be talking at you. Ciao.